What's going on, people? It's your boy Ronnie G. Rondell, to be exact. um, what? Well, let me be fully honest. It's like almost 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm outside. I'm in the elements, and I'm homeless. I know. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not being a joke when I say that. It's very real. Um, I get into the reason why I've become homeless, and before that, I just really want to get into who I am as a person, and give somewhat of a brief introduction of my life as best as I can. Um, Hopefully it's not too long, but I'm gonna try my best to just put everything out on the table and see how that works, because I do want to post these things uh, very soon, just to kind of give I guess you could say timeline in a sense of what my life is uh, as a homeless man, someone who doesn't have anywhere to lay his head, and that's literal. Yeah, I'm 43 years old. Um, Again, my name is Rondell. Rondell Patrick Gilliam, to be exact. Um, Never knew that my full name, has a distinct, um, I guess you could say, meaning to it until recent time. I never really followed the real definition of my name, my full name, more so or less, until recent times. But I've realized because of that, there's so much to who I am as a person, and mainly the Father, the Most High, as some people would say, God, even. You know what I'm saying? Um, in this whole time of, I guess you could say, this journey that the Father has put me on, this path of righteousness, He has put me on. It's been a very huge experience for me. From the time of, the Spirit detailing itself to me, would probably be, I would say, one of the biggest turning points in my life. I don't really share that experience too much with people, although I have in some ways. I've never really been, detailed about, my whole connection to the Father and things like that. I know, everybody has one, or a story, more so or less, but I think mine's is worth speaking about, and letting people know that um, this is, a sign that, comes from the Father. And, as far as my life is concerned, it's a sign that comes from the Father, and a lot of people probably are not going to understand it, or even probably be um, moved by it, But for the ones uh, who would be moved by it, I mean, I would hope that you look at this, and in a way of seriousness, and then just to allow the Father to, speak to you through me, if that's possible. If that's something that you can see yourself doing, because I don't think everybody, fully understands the Father and His ways as much as they may feel that they do. And I'm always someone who wants to give my people things as like, I like to chop up their food, you know what I mean? Like, I look at my people as babes, you know what I mean, in this thing called life. And I mean, I know a lot of them feel that they're too grown, but I'll be one to disagree with that, because when I thought I was too grown, the Father showed me that I was just a child, and that he would rather me be a child than anyone else. So knowing that is it is humbling, but it's necessary. It's very, very necessary. But okay, well, again, I did introduce myself as far as my name, my age. I'm 43 years old. Um, I've been experiencing, a lot of spiritual thoughts and just understandings in my recent life. When I probably was at maybe the tender age of probably 20, um, 23, 24. Could have even been, I'm sorry, 25, but somewhere around there. Anyway, um, Father had uh, pretty much came into my life, man, and it happened at a time where I was like really, really going through some things, like kind of where I'm at right now. It was like one of those experiences where I was really beat down by the world, just really kind of like opening up to the reality of things and just the world in itself, like knowing that in order for you to make it out here, you can't really depend on people. You have to kind of like stick it out for what and just get out there and hopefully, the Father give you something in time. Because I know, it's always a journey, and it's always in some ways like a risk. And I don't want to say that and to say, well, the Father doesn't come through for us, but it's just the fact that we have been dumbed down into believing that this system, a world system, is pretty much for us when it's really not. And I had to learn that the hard way when I was much younger. And I think at that time, even I was home. I mean, I wasn't homeless, but I was in the process of being homeless because I was I couldn't afford my rent in New York. I couldn't afford. That was the reality of things. I could not afford to live in New York. But the reality as well was that that's the only thing I knew. So of course, there was like government programs and things like that, at my disposal. But I, I mean, at my disposal. But I just couldn't see myself getting into wanting to do those things because I remember, at one time how rude and just awful, man. Like, I guess when you're in need and people, well, the people who they put over those systems, that those programs, they're the worst people ever. They're the worst people ever. And I remember like going back and forth to the section. No, well, it wasn't the Section 8. It was the welfare office. And I didn't want to go on welfare because it was just like, who goes on welfare, especially if you're an able-bodied worker. But what it was is that I needed the time to be able to get myself in a better situation where I was at. So I needed to get, have some sort of income, and I had nothing. I had no job, no income. So I was definitely out there and suffering. And I learned, I did learn how to get myself up, out of the bed, because at that time I was like really, really, in my zone, and I was trying my best to like find a niche, and at the time I wanted to play music. That was my thing. I always wanted to play music, and I loved the whole, DJ, thing, as far as being able to play good music and in some ways control the crowd, and being able to speak into a audio microphone and basically let people hear what's on my heart, and even you know hopefully heal the world. That was always my aspiration, was to heal the world through my words and just giving them good quality music. um, which was an experience in itself. But I'm not going to go into that right now. But for the most part, I went as far as that would allow me, and I woke up to reality and knew that for me, I needed to do what was more important for me at the time, and that was just finding somewhere where I can get some financial help. And again, the only thing I can think of at the time was, uh, Section 8, welfare office, things like that. And I went through it. I went there and I spoke to them very, you know, sincere, and just wanted to let them know that I was out here and I was struggling and I needed some sort of help. And where could they point me? Which direction could they point me into? Lo and behold, I remember the lady who I was speaking to. She was I can't remember exactly where she was from, but she was definitely not from America. She wasn't born here. But she was listening to me, and I was speaking to her. Well, actually, no. You know what happened? I'm sorry. I was speaking to another lady. This lady actually happened to be American, right? And sometimes it's funny when they put those people in those places. Usually it seems like they're people who been strung out or either in the same situations before. So and just to say, maybe they get a chance to be able to okay, my time just, so it's like 3:50, I believe. I think, no, 3:15. Okay, 3:15. So it's not 4 o'clock yet. But anyhow, right, where was that? I was saying that the lady, the American lady, she was being real, just combative to me. I don't know how to explain it, but she just kept telling me, oh well, um, you need to do this and you need to do that. But I was trying to explain to her, well, I did these things and this is not working, the way it was supposed to. And she go, well, you need to. So what I was thinking is that, being that she's been in this field for so long and probably dealt with so many different people with almost similar stories, she assumed that she knew mine. You know, she just assumed that she knew mine because it sounded familiar, but she didn't give herself a time or a chance to really think of what I was saying. So anyhow, not long after, a lady came, and this is the lady who, she was from somewhere else. I mean, I almost would think that she was African, so-called African, more so or less. But she she had that demeanor, and I guess she heard me talking to the lady and trying to explain to her. So she came to the lady and she goes, such and such, you have to listen to him. He's trying to explain to you, but you have to listen because his story may not be the same. But it was so crazy because it was exactly how I was feeling at that moment. Like, you keep trying to rebuttal everything I tell you, but you're not trying to really hear me. You're looking at me just as somebody that's young and out here in the streets, but you're not looking at what's going on in my whole situation. So anyway, with that, it was just a horrible, thing just to deal with, because I really was feeling that people were going to listen to me, and say, I can help him, because I see what happened, and his situation is definitely something that he didn't cause on his own. He didn't cause it. And that was the whole thing. I was really trying to show that I was innocent in my whole reason for being in that type of situation. Fast forward from that, I had found a job not long after, because they saw that I was an able-bodied worker, of course, and they put me out there. Excuse me. It's getting a little loud. Yeah, pardon me for that, but I would have paused it. I just didn't think about that. But anyhow, when I got to the location where they wanted me to be, I hope this thing was actually he was able to hear me, because I swear I never remember that this mic is tucked all the way away, and I probably talked the whole time and it's not even hearing. Okay, so it did look like it was recording fine. I just thought I would stop it anyway because I didn't want to go through having to do this all over again. But anyhow, when I did find a job, it was a security job, and the security job, it was an experience in itself. I really, at first, I was disgusted by it. Well, I wouldn't say that. I was happy because I really wanted to find something to do. But once I had found the security job, they would like, wanted to start me at 8. I think it was maybe like 8.25. Yeah, $8.25. And this is probably 19. No, I'm sorry, maybe 2007. Could be around there. 2006, 2007. I was making $8.25, and it was something. It was something. And security was definitely not my forte. I've never had, at the time, never had a security job. So I really wasn't too sure of how I was going to hold it down, because I seen the importance in security work. And me being just a small, frail person, you know, I was trying to figure out how was I going to defend anything if it ever got to that level. Well, thanks to the Father, it never really got that far. But I do remember. I mean, I recall, because where they had me was like, most of Family Dollar. That was like the first time I actually knew about a Family Dollar. I don't think I had never went to a Family Dollar before I started working at security. But when I went there, when I was working there, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is like every Family Dollar is right next to a projects. And nothing but the hood comes there. So I mean, I was seeing everybody from the hood, man, and it was just crazy. I mean, no one that I knew personally. Maybe a few times I've seen somebody that I knew, but most of the time it was like, and I was over there in like, I want to say that's Bushwick area. You know what I mean? Like the heart of Bushwick. So I was out there, and really just trying my best to keep a job, and get there every day, like I, would always do. And I never had a problem holding down a job. It was just that, jobs are not that easy sometimes, especially when you're out your zone. That's not what you're. I always wanted to be someone who was behind a desk. That was to me successful. Whatever it was, I wanted to be behind the desk, sitting down, you know, writing a little bit of chicken scratch, signing some, and making some decent money. That was my life. That was my goal ultimately. Was to work. I didn't ever think about owning businesses and things like that. Never really was inspired to be that type of person either. So, you know, um, that's where it led me, just to want to at least have a comfortable life and work. I mean, I just, at the time I felt like, just having a job was something that people would respect regardless of what you did, as long as you were working. That was the era that I was brought up under. Fast forward into, I would say, where things really start to, I guess, really show a lot more of how, evil things and, evil this world can be. How evil the world can be. And it's all about just, experience, man, because sometimes, we're oblivious to certain things because we don't have it. We don't ever get that chance to experience it. But I went, and started working at a culinary school, and I was doing the maintenance work there, and I did that for 7 years. You know, this is after the security job, right? So I did that for 7 years, maintenance work. Um, like I said, in the culinary field, and that was an experience, man. I mean, you know, having to work, it was a overnight shift, so I was pretty much there from 11 o'clock to like 7:30 in the morning. Sometimes 8. All depending. Then there would be sometimes where I had a manager. He was like the worst. He was the worst manager, but even with that was an experience. And I'll never forget him, Jose. Um, he would I'm sorry, I said Jose. I'm sorry. His name is Felix. Felix. Okay, I would never forget Felix, man. Felix was a trip, and anybody who knows, me, know that I'm telling the truth. I was definitely, one of those. I wasn't one of his favorites, but I would say that I knew how to keep myself out of trouble. I knew how to do what I was supposed to do, and I left there after 7 years, and went to another maintenance job, and that job was in Park Slope, Brooklyn. I worked there, so that would have been my last job. The job that I recently left, and I left that job, that maintenance job, after probably pretty much 4.5 years, almost 5, because it was just, I noticed that the Father, again, the spirit that the Father had blessed me with was just showing so much development, and just in the way that I see things in the world, and judge, in how I judge people, because I think sometimes, it's clear to say that, people live this world, and they don't really look at their actions and judge those accordingly. So the Father, He gave me a blessing, which I feel was to be able to see through the nonsense, and especially when it came to people and their dishonesty, the fact that they were okay with lying and being very dishonest to you, no matter how honest you were, they would respect your honesty, but at the same time they would tell you lies after lies right in front of your face, and sometimes you would know, but it's nothing you can do about it, and I wasn't never the type to fight, for justice, and want to get people to respect me. Like, if you didn't respect me and you didn't hold, me as a valuable person because of, who I am, I let you do me any type of way, and people probably look at that as, foolish, but for me, it wasn't. It was always, the Father would handle that. If you're an evil person and you out here lying and being dishonest to people because, of your job, more so or less, because you want to keep your job, then yeah, the Father's gonna handle you, and that's how I always roll. So anybody, who knows me, I've never been a confrontational person. I've always been someone who, that's very approachable, but at the end of the day, know that, I'm a very wise person nonetheless. So I'm not gonna just allow people to just dictate um, what they see me as, or who they see me as, until they give me a fair shot, you know what I mean, as far as listening to me, because I think sometimes people just assume who you are because of your look, your temperament. They'll look at you and see that you're passive, and you're not confrontational, and maybe they look at that as a way of being deceptive, and also taking advantage of a person. um, Fulfilling also, the fact that, the Father said that we would be sheep, that's led to the slaughter when it comes to these people that are around us. A lot of these people, this is how they move. They move with all of these different types of underhanded, things that they want to do to people, but then think that there's no repercussions that come with it. You see what I'm saying? Like, the Father just sleeps and He doesn't see anything. So that was always my whole thing. Like, if you were gonna do me wrong, you were gonna definitely pay the price once the Father exposed you. And I'm looking at this time, and I might stop this video soon because I don't want to go over. Uh, I was trying to keep it under 30 minutes, so it's at 25 now. So I'm gonna soon stop this video, and I'll bring back another. I guess you could say part two. But anyhow, with this, I just wanted to, of course, let people know that the Father is speaking, through a man, and that man is me. Um, Again, the scripture said that the Son of Man has no place to lay his head, and this is a fact. When it comes to our people, a lot of our people are still clinging to a system that is failing and failing miserably. How we know that to be the truth is the fact that um, you look at who we have as a president, Donald Trump. I mean, it should be fully aware now that things are going to go from bad to worst when it comes to Donald Trump, and these are things that we can't avoid. This is the Father's doing. This is the Father's doing, because again, these systems, are just like I was said, put in place to cause the children of the Father, you know, the children of Israel. People may call them different things, but I look at them as the Father's people. Long story short, I can't go into some histories, although I do believe that they all have some validity to them. I'm not going to go into that right now, but only thing I'm going to say is that the Father sees all things, and I think it's one thing for us to be very um, we need to admit that this world is hell. This world that we live in is hell. And for anyone who's suffering and going through what they're going through, you have to look at it as that. You can't look at it as it's a you know that you're gonna get out of it on by your own will. You know what I'm saying? No, the Father brings you out of these things. So you look at your comfortable place, and you look at your home right now, and you look at your job that's paying you, reasonable money to be able to get your bills paid, and then look at my life and say to me that I'm a failure. Tell me that I'm the one who done this to myself, and I have to disagree. I'm someone who's very intelligent, very bright, and pretty much can do anything that the Father put in my path. However, there's certain things that I would say, it's not worth it, and that is selling out. Because when you look at what's going on with our people in this world, regardless of how much money you make and how successful you become, you have to first and foremost admit that your people are still suffering. Where I'm at right now is New Orleans. I never thought in a million years that I ever make it to New Orleans, but lo and behold, the Father's seen something different. And I'm living in New Orleans, and I'm living as a homeless man. How I don't know how to be an unsuccessful homeless man, but I guess the only way that can happen is if you don't apply what your talent is. You have to. Here I see a lot of people out here. They're they pretty much on their wits end. A lot of people out here are struggling nonetheless. No different from what you would see in New York, but I think New Yorkers, I would even say it would probably be even worse to live in New York and suffer because of the weather. We got like really bad cold weather out there. And that was one thing I was always saying, like, Father, if I'm gonna be homeless, I can't be homeless in New York because, man, I'm gonna freeze to death, man. Like, I'm not good with those elements. But the Father brought me out here, and this is all prophetic, you know, for a lot of people who probably don't catch on to prophecy. You know, this is fulfilling prophecy as far as I'm concerned. um, how do I know that? You know, stick around. You know, you're gonna really see these things come to fruition, and me being at the head of it. So, you know, I hope that this video, of course, reaches people who are, um, you know, eager to understand exactly where I'm coming from, and not quick to judge, you know, but also listen and understand, you know, the position that I play in this world, as far as, you know, taking a stand that I took, you know, because I could have been out in New York still trying to find, you know, holding down a job and still hating myself at the same time. Some people say, well, you know, why did, you know, you left your job, so, you know, why do we care about you and your situation? Well, that's the same thing what, you know, the rich man would have probably said to Lazarus. You know, he would have probably said, well, listen, Lazarus, you're a man, you're a grown man, why are you homeless? You can go out there and find yourself something. But I think there's more to the message compared to what people see on the surface. So saying, you know, that being said, I'm gonna end this video. You know, I've definitely reached the 30-minute mark. Hopefully this was inspiring to, you know, and interesting and all of those other things. You know, hopefully, you know, you guys will be back on my page to look at my journey, because I'm gonna be posting a lot of things, you know, and best as I can, you know, just keeping people posted on my transition, because I do look at this as a transition. So again, I'm gonna end this video. Appreciate people for paying attention and looking. Um, God bless.